You ever wake up thinking your biggest problem's gonna be finding your left slipper, and instead you get hit with a 5-foot-tall hurricane in a sun hat taping a reserved for HOA annual gala sign right across the iron gate of your 200-year-old beach house? Yeah, that happened. I thought it was a joke, some neighbor's kid, maybe. But then she spun around, realtor's grin gleaming, and told me, "We've booked your property for next Saturday, Mr. Turner. 125 guests, catered, licensed, approved by the board." Now, my name's Eli Turner, and I've spent my whole life, heck, my family spent 3 generations, guarding this crooked stretch of sand from hurricanes, pirates, greedy developers, and now, apparently, suburban tyranny in sequins and floral print. The house behind me? It's not just a house. It's a stubborn old general, weathered and battered, every nail holding 2 centuries of rebellion and quiet resolve. But to Karen Whitmore, HOA president, none of that mattered. All she saw was an ocean view and a chance to rack up her community leadership points. She marched right onto my porch with her clipboard lackey, pointed out all the things she wanted removed before her big event, including the antique bell my great-granddad used to signal incoming storms. I didn't even bother to argue. Didn't yell. Just listened, nodded slow, let that old stubborn patience settle over me like a second skin. Because something deep down knew, clear as a sunrise, that this fight wouldn't end with words. No, it'd end with locks, levers, and a few lessons in boundaries. Karen kept going on about live bands, sunset views, tearing out my fence. My ancestors probably groaned so loud, you could hear it through the floorboards. When I told her, politely, that she was mistaken, this was federally registered, private property, she laughed. "Don't be so uptight, Eli. The HOA manages community harmony, and this old house is part of our shared landscape." I caught every word on my porch cam, right up to the part where she called my home a charming backdrop for a beach soiree. And when she said noon on Saturday, I smiled, real friendly, said, "That's perfect." Her face twitched, just a split second, like maybe she sensed the storm on the horizon. When they left, sun hat bobbing, clipboard minion shuffling, reserved sign flapping in the breeze, I stood there letting the ocean air fill my lungs, the salty tang of it mixing with old varnish and even older memories. I wandered down the hallway, faces of Turners gone, staring out at me. Like judges. "They're coming for the house again," I whispered. "Not the first time. There's still a cannonball scar in the cellar wall from 1812. My granddad fought developers in the 70s. Bulldozers poised to flatten this place for a resort. Now it's Karen, queen of the cul-de-sac, her army of retirees armed with lawn chairs." I poured another coffee, settled onto the balcony, and let a plan start to form. 5 days until her buses arrived. 5 days to turn 2 centuries of stubbornness into the most elegant fortress this coast's ever seen. So I called Maya, County Archives legend and secret lover of bureaucratic smackdowns. She laughed herself breathless when she heard the story, said, "Eli, this is going to be delicious. You know the preservation clause still stands, right?" That's when the fuse lit in my mind. Buried deep in the deed, the clause that made this property a national restoration site. Any unauthorized event wasn't just trespassing. It was damaging federal history. I wasn't just an owner. I was a steward. That night, the waves slapped the rocks like applause. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about teaching folks like Karen what boundaries mean. Real, legal, steel and paper boundaries. Next morning, I walked the perimeter, checked locks, eyed the hinges, mapped out where new motion sensors would fit. My great-granddad's workshop, still thick with oil and dust, held blueprints and one handwritten note. "Every gate tells a story. Make sure yours has a good ending." The ending was writing itself. I wasn't going to shout. The house would do the talking, silent, proud, and locked. You could feel it in the air, the calm before a storm that'd make headlines. The reserved sign still flapped on my gate, tape already peeling, maybe embarrassed to be part of Karen's circus. I took it down, pinned it to the workshop wall as a trophy. I needed more than satisfaction. I needed legal armor. Upstairs in the old study, I dug out blueprints from 1820, every lock and hidden beam sketched in black ink, designed by folks who didn't trust outsiders either. The house was practically cheering me on. Around noon, I called Maya again, told her about the gala. She cackled. She just declared war on paperwork and invited me to the archives. There, under golden light, Maya flipped open a leather folder to the Federal Heritage Protection Act, which meant any unauthorized balloon or banner was, legally, vandalism. So if 125 people show up here with champagne, they're trespassing on a federal site, Maya said. We grinned like kids with a cheat code. Next, I filed for a temporary restoration period. Just a few forms, but it barred all public access to the road and gates for historical maintenance. That way, when Karen's parade showed up, the law would stand between them and my house. I drove home grinning, mind already replaying her shocked face at the locked gate. That afternoon, I rigged the hydraulic pump to the old gate, adjusted tension till it groaned with power, tested floodlights, motion sensors in vintage lanterns, cameras hidden in the cobblestone. It looked untouched, outside, but underneath, it was a fortress. By sunset, I drafted an email. Dear Ms. Whitmore, thank you for informing me of your event. Please note Turner Beach Estate is under restricted federal restoration. Unauthorized gatherings are a violation under Section 14B. I hit send, then taped a copy to the inside of the gate for good measure. 5 buses of HOA royalty were about to meet 200 years of no. And in this neighborhood, rumor spreads like a hurricane. Sure enough, the next morning, 3 golf carts showed up at my gate, HOA committee in matching visors and code enforcement scowls. Just checking sight lines, Doug said, snapping photos. I leaned on the rail, didn't say a word. When they edged closer, I pressed a button. Motion sensors lit up the gate. Like Broadway. Doug nearly dropped his latte. Historical safety measure, I deadpanned. They scattered. Later, I scrolled the HOA's online forum. Karen had already posted, Community Unity event at Turner Beach House confirmed. Comments split between admiration and, did Eli agree? She replied with mutual agreement. My phone buzzed with screenshots. You better have cameras ready. Card, delivered it to her mailbox next morning. I barely slept that night, not from nerves, but anticipation. The next day, a gold embossed flyer showed up in my mail, hosted at the historic Turner Beach Estate. I almost clapped. Her boldness was a gift. I called the fire marshal. Unpermitted mass gathering, federally preserved property. He promised to keep a unit nearby. Translation: her party would get the flashing lights treatment. By the 5th day, everything gleamed. Bolts, sensors, cameras. Doug drove by, big weekend ahead. I grinned, wouldn't miss it for the world. By sunset, Karen was online, posting final confirmations. Guests were excited, clueless. I poured a last cup of coffee, told my grandfather's portrait, don't worry, they're about to learn what. Maya arrived with coffee and a grin. She loved the new brass plate, restoration in progress. Authorized entry only. She laughed. Stealthy. I said, you don't need to shout when you've got federal law. Together, we checked the system, motion sensors, backup generator, floodlights, cloud-linked cameras. Karen's committee, meanwhile, was putting up tents a few blocks away, blissfully planning their gala. I watched through binoculars as Karen barked orders, her arrogance too big for her own lot. In the workshop, I fine-tuned the gate's hydraulic delay so it would start to open, then slam shut. The sound alone would clear half the crowd. Later, I rewired the old bell to ring if someone forced the gate, a touch of Turner drama. Mark and Claire showed up from town. Brought sandwiches and bottled water, helped test the lights. Karen told everyone she negotiated with you. Claire said, laughing. They'll be in for a shock. When the floodlights fired up, Claire whistled. Beautiful. Like a movie. That's the plan. Twilight thickened, Karen's camp alive with champagne and speeches about HOA unity. But inside, I felt no anger, just the satisfaction that the final act was set. Before bed, I walked to the shore, cold waves around my ankles, the moon stretching a road of silver to the horizon. My great-granddad's house, still standing, defiant as ever. I whispered, hold the line. The house creaked, as if it agreed. Saturday arrived bright and sharp. 5 buses crawled down the lane. Karen perched up front, army of partygoers in tow. The gate glistened, new sign gleaming. Authorized access only. Karen hopped out, clipboard flapping, called, Eli, we're here. I waited, then pressed the button. Hidden speakers crackled with my great-granddad's century-old voice. Private land. Turn back immediately. The crowd froze, half laughing, half confused. Karen tried to play it cool. Don't be dramatic, Eli. But I pressed the next button. The gate started to open, then slammed shut, louder than thunder. A nervous murmur swept the guests. Some clapped, thinking it was part of the show. I stepped out on the balcony. Good afternoon, Karen. You're trespassing on federal property. Gasps, phones out. Karen tried her last card. We have permits. HOA sanctioned. I just raised my coffee. Then explain why you're events on private, federally protected land. Her assistant panicked. Checked the invitation, my address, bold and clear. Then a police car rolled in, lights flashing. Officer squinted at me. Mr. Turner, is this property under restoration? I held up my paperwork. He nodded, told Karen. This land's a historical restoration zone. No event here without owner consent. Silence fell like a hammer. Someone muttered. You said he agreed. Karen's face collapsed. Officer said, I'd advise everyone to return to your vehicles. This isn't a gray area. It's federal law. My great-granddad's voice boomed again. Turned back immediately. Guests laughed nervously, dragging coolers back to the buses. Karen muttered threats as the officer escorted her away. When the last bus vanished, I exhaled. The house groaned contentedly, the gate shining in the sunlight. I turned to my porch camera, grinned, and whispered, and that, dear Karen, is why you never reserve a house that already belongs to history. The next day, Karen was a legend, though not the way she wanted. Videos of her meltdown went viral. Neighbors left me notes, apologies, offers to pay for emotional inconvenience. A simple "you made us proud." Even Karen called, demanding an apology for humiliating her. I told her the only thing I regretted was not charging admission. She ranted about community values. I said, Karen, you destroyed your own reputation. I just locked the gate. She tried to file complaints, called me a public menace. But the same gates that had stood since 1820 were now, according to Karen, weapons of mass destruction. The officer just shook his head. She's digging her own grave. At sunset, folks drove by honking in solidarity. You're a legend, Turner, someone yelled. Karen's banned from the HOA forum. Almost felt bad for her. Almost. But the saga wasn't quite done. I found evidence someone tried to cut through the fence, wire left behind, fresh scratch by the latch. That night, the security feed caught Karen and her assistant, sneaking up with bolt cutters. Floodlights snapped on, great-granddad's voice boomed. Private land. Turn back. They froze. Panic obvious, as the local patrol rolled up. Officers led Karen away, her shoes sinking in the sand. You can't keep winning forever, Eli, she hissed. I smiled, maybe, but not tonight. Next morning, reporters swarmed the gate. Was she breaking in? They asked. No, I said, just inspecting the consequences of entitlement. By sundown, the HOA board suspended Karen. Pending investigation. The house felt peaceful again, a stubborn monument to boundaries, and for once, the line had held. Some say justice is a gavel. Me? I think sometimes it's a locked gate. A creaky old house, and a lesson nobody's gonna forget. What would you have done? Let them in, or held the line? Drop your take in the comments. And if you've ever stood your ground against a bully in a sun hat, let's hear your story. Sometimes the best way to defend history isn't a fight. It's just never opening the gate. 19.